Today I'm reviewing Danube 20 by Victory Point Games, a boxed game with a mounted map. So this is a game that is published at the level of component quality that Victory Point Games has been experimenting with recently. You can also purchase the game in a less expensive version though. And this game is the new installment in the Napoleonics 20 series by Victory Point Games, a series of simple, pretty linear, straightforward Napoleonic games. This is a series that I enjoyed quite a bit. I enjoyed it in the past. I already reviewed several titles in the system, and this is why I already have a video in which I explain how the system works, so I do not have to repeat the same things here. If you do not know how Napoleonics 20 works and you want to know that, then I recommend that you watch my video for Jena 20 where I explain the rules at the core of the entire series. Here, what I'm going to do today is to concentrate on the battles that you find in this package here, which in fact contains 2 battles, and the title refers to the fact that both battles have to do with the French army attempting to cross the Danube River in different situations and circumstances, and, well, a lot in these battles in fact revolves around how much time it takes for the French player to cross the river and the amount and type of troubles that the French player will encounter while attempting to do so. Anyhow, without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about the battles that you find in this package here. This is the map for the Battle of Wagram. It is a mounted map. It was cut into pieces that assemble like a puzzle. However, I have to say that here in this case the laser that made the cut darkened the areas around the edges so that the puzzle grid is particularly visible here, more than say in the map for Boom and Zoom, the game by Victory Point Games that I reviewed recently and that has a similar mounted map. It may also be because of the lighter background color here, but it is particularly evident and I thought I would mention it. In any case, this is the setup for the battle. One of the possible setups, but things will look more or less like this when you start playing the game, because there are only 3 units that have variable setup, and they are these 3 Austrian units here that can set up anywhere in this area here, pretty much on the big puzzle piece here. As you can see also, some Austrian units are face down because those units are inactive at the beginning of the game. This represents Austrian caution, indecision, in any case the decision of the Austrians to wait until it was clear what the French army was doing before committing units to the fight. So every turn the Austrian player will have to roll a die on the Austrian caution table to see whether or not units can be released, can become active and join the fight, and in that case how many. And the Austrian units that are face up on the map at setup are available for action at the beginning of the game. Here we have the French units that are on this island here, waiting to cross the river and to attack the Austrian units. The game starts with a mini turn in which all that happens is a French movement phase. That's it. The French player gets to move, but in that turn the player has to roll on the confusion and congestion table to see how many units can actually move. Then you have turn 2, which is the first full turn in the game, and the French player is the first player. So what happens here is that the French player gets to move twice at the beginning of the game. Here the French player has an intrinsic garrison to protect the bridgehead there. Here there is a similar intrinsic garrison, but with artillery, pretty powerful, especially if you're using the optional rule about artillery support. You do not see them here, but there are also some unfinished bridges printed on the map, on these edges here. They are not available to the French player at the beginning of the game, precisely because they are unfinished. They are automatically finished if these two axes here are free of Austrian units. At that point, those bridges can be used to bring in reinforcements faster than you would otherwise do if you move through these other bridges here, which are available at the beginning of the game. Here there's also a marker that represents damaged pontoon bridges. There's a mistake in the setup instructions. They tell you to place the marker here, but when you read all of the exclusive rules for this battle, you figure out that that marker must go there. So this marker here represents pontoon bridges that are not available at the beginning of the game, but later in the game reinforcements can enter from here and spend their entire movement allowance to repair the bridge. At that point, units can also be brought in from here. There are a lot of French reinforcements scheduled to enter the battle. They will enter from here or from here. However, you can delay reinforcements by 3 turns, and in that case, you can enter that reinforcement from the other entry point, from which the reinforcement is not scheduled to enter. So what you're going to have here is a slow advance of this wave of French reinforcements, slow but steady. That will have some traffic jam problems here, but nevertheless they will slowly wear out the Austrian defenses, especially if these units take a while to become active. So for a while, in the first part of the game, the Austrian player needs to move in reinforcements as fast as possible and to try to make do with what is available on the board before very powerful units enter the game. Because actually these 3 units are simply the best units that the Austrian player has. And so you're going to have an interesting situation here. Once all or most French units have crossed the river and all or most Austrian units are active, then the survivors of the initial struggles will have to figure out a way of course, tipping the battle to their advantage. But there is this sort of like 2-phase game. First, the initial situation. Let's see how many French units manage to get across and how long it takes and where they are going to be. And then, of course, there's going to be the main fight, or a second phase of the fight, which can be located in different areas of the board as the French player tries to take control of Austrian objectives and the Austrian player, of course, tries to repel the French and or to protect objectives. Overall, this is an interesting battle. I like the narrative, I like the progression that you have throughout the battle, through these different phases of the battle, of the story, and definitely this is a battle that had a lot of interesting challenges for both players. As per an S-Ling, this battle is played on the other side of the mounted map, where the terrain actually is exactly the same, but you have a different turn schedule here, and also different indications on the map about objective access and, more important than anything, French crossing sites, or I should say possible French crossing sites. The French player starts with only 2 units on the map, 1 unit on this side of the river sitting on a bridgehead marker, and this other unit on this other side of the river on a pontoon bridges marker, and that marker is on the pontoon bridges intact side. Remember, there's also a damage site. And these 4 units, well, 2 units and 2 markers, can be placed in the 2 axes corresponding to any of the blue stars that you have here on the map. The French player may even choose to enter units from here by using an optional rule that allows to execute an outflanking maneuver, and depending on the crossing site that you choose, the corresponding French objective X will be placed in the proximity of that crossing site. So as you can imagine, by setting up the crossing site in different locations from game to game, you're going to have very different situations. Different areas of the map are going to be emphasized. A big thing, of course, is going to be for the French player, well, how soon do you want to engage against the Austrian units, because they start in this area of the map. Of course, entering from here will give you more time to set up your forces on this side of the river, but there are just different ways in which the situation can be handled. The Austrian units set up on the map face down, just like in the previous scenario. They're inactive. Again, we have Austrian caution here, and again, the Austrian player needs to roll on a table, on the release table, to determine how many units are actually activated each turn. Here it works in a slightly different way because there's a modifier based on the number of French units that cross the river. The more units you have on this side of the river, the more likely are Austrian units to become active. Well, reasonably enough, I believe. And again, you have a good number of French reinforcements that will join the battle, but crossing the river is going to be more problematic here than it was in that scenario, because the pontoon bridges here are much more fragile. Every time that a French unit attempts to cross the river, the French player needs to roll on the pontoon crossing table. On a result of 4 to 6, the unit crosses and nothing happens to the pontoon. 2 to 3, the unit crosses but the pontoon is damaged. 1, the unit fails to cross, so just sits there, and the pontoon is damaged. So there are 50% chances that the pontoon will be damaged each time that the unit tries to move through that pontoon. What does it mean? It means that the pontoon is inactive until it is repaired. At the beginning of each turn, if the pontoon is damaged, the French player can roll on the pontoon repair table, and there are 4 chances out of 6 that the pontoon will be repaired. Chances are good, but it is not something that you can take for granted. The French player can spend a morale point to get better odds. Still, it is an interesting, there's an interesting uncertainty there. You really do not know as a French player whether or not your units are going to be able to cross. Some reinforcements may have to wait here for a while. There can be a little bit of a traffic jam here. And the pontoon marker will be flipped back and forth probably many times in the game as the pontoon is damaged and then repaired and damaged again and then repaired. There are even circumstances in which the pontoon may simply be destroyed for good. It disappears down the river, and at that point the French reinforcements simply cannot enter the fight anymore, and the French units that are already on this side of the river, well, will have to survive and try to do whatever they can to inflict damage on the Austrian units and or to take control of Austrian objectives. So this is a very interesting battle. The overall narrative may be very similar to the one that you find in the previous battle that I showed you, because again you have a struggle between Austrian units that are late to become active against French units that are struggling to go to the river, and the pace, the rhythm, the time that it takes them to do so, of course, will change from game to game. Such uncertainty also makes for a very entertaining solitaire experience. It adds that level of unpredictability that is always welcome when you're playing the game by yourself, playing both sides at the best of your possibilities. But definitely an interesting battle, one that, even though presents a similar architecture similar to the one that you have in Data Battle, still has a different feel, and definitely I like the replay value that you have here from the fact that you can try different types of setup, different type of crossing sites, and those will create different types of situations on the board. As it happens occasionally, due to my very busy schedule, I start filming a review at home and then I do not have the time to film it all. I have to film my conclusions on my way to my next adventure, and that's pretty much what I'm doing here. But these conclusions will be brief because I think it is clear that I enjoyed these battles. I enjoyed both scenarios that are included in Danube 20. I think that there are interesting choices, interesting decisions. There are challenges that are different from side to side. The French and the Austrian players are facing very different situations. Both battles work well in solitaire. So I think that this is a package that will appeal to players that already are into the Napoleonics 20 series. But if you've never played the system, I think this could also be a good starting point. Yes, there are exclusive rules and maybe more than in other games in the series. Yet, nevertheless, from a battle to the other, the exclusive rules are pretty similar. So once you have played a battle, it is pretty easy to pick up what is specific and unique about the other battle. The exclusive rules are pretty much variants of the same set of ideas, so I don't think it is going to be very hard for you to learn. The system is just so linear, so simple. And these two battles definitely capture all of the good aspects that I always liked about the Napoleonics 20 system. That is a system that is simple, straightforward, elegant, economic, that delivers a lot of story and a lot of flavor in a set of rules that is extremely essential, I would say almost minimalist. You have this very small core of rules, and then you have specific rules that allow you to create different situations from battle to battle. I definitely like that, and I liked how the system is expressed here, how the system takes shape in the two battles included in the Danube 20 package.